Now I'd like to draw your attention to some, usually infrequent, invoice verification process scenarios. Specifically, we will speak to the occasion when, for some reason, the automatic PO matching process produces errors, which can be resolved by checking data against an accessible accounting system. Here I have a verification task, and I'm going to start verifying the invoices. You can see 3 invoices in the task, and all of them have a rejected status. Let's open the first document. The reason for this invoice carrying the rejected status is here. Check purchase order number and amount. Let's investigate. The PO number has been found on the invoice, but the database check rule could not find this PO number in the purchase order dataset. The purchase order total was not captured, and therefore cannot be verified against the PO dataset. We can populate the total field from data on the invoice, but the rule will throw an error in any case, as this data does not exist in the dataset. Let's see what's in the line items. I'm going to expand the data form so I can see the whole table. First, I'll verify the uncertainly recognized characters printed in red. Then I can analyze the data captured from the table, and I want to emphasize that the quantity, unit price, and total net amount columns are highlighted in green, and this looks like the database lookup rule actually worked on these fields, and no incongruities were found. So I'd like to open the accountant database and see if there are any entries regarding these items there. Here's the original source purchase order items accounting database, and I can see the ordered items within it. Here they are. We can scroll over to check values, unit price, quantity, net amount, and they are equal to what we see on the invoice. At the same time, there aren't article and purchase order fields specified for these line items. I'm not sure why this is the case, but I can definitely say that the item values are correct. So based on this check, I'm going to validate this invoice in FlexiCapture and manually confirm PO matching. Note that there is an isValid checkmark for each line item that we can check during verification if we are sure that the data is correct. But on this particular invoice, the error originates not from the line items, but from the purchase order group, where FlexiCapture fails to verify the PO number and PO total against the dataset. So, in order to manually confirm this invoice, we also need to go to the purchase orders group and check the order checked checkmark. This means that even though the automatic data set lookup rule didn't work, we can say that invoice is correct because we have manually verified it against the accounting database. Such a situation may occur when, for example, the PO dataset was not updated and the needed PO data is not yet presented in the dataset in the ABBYY project, but it is in the accountant system database, whatever that might look like. And as soon as we check this checkmark, the error disappears. After saving the changes, the invoice status is automatically changed to valid. However, if we did not have access to manually verify invoices against an accountant database, the rejected invoice should be left as rejected and should be processed downstream according to the exception workflow path that has been put in place by a FlexiCapture administrator. Now let's see what we have in the next document. The error says that line item data has not been found in the dataset. Let's analyze this. First of all, this invoice doesn't have a purchase order at all, which is okay because we may easily process PO-based invoices and non-PO-based invoices in the same project and even in the same task. And since the rule which automatically checks the invoice items against PO items works for each invoice, we should be prepared to validate such invoices manually. At the same time, looking at this line item, we see that only description and net total are displayed in the line items. even if this invoice had a purchase order number and the data was found in the corresponding FlexiCapture dataset, the dataset lookup would not work. This is because, depending on the project settings, usually the article, quantity, unit price, and total price net fields are used in the database lookup rule. And in this case, we do not have all these fields printed on the invoice. So FlexiCapture cannot compare them with corresponding data from the dataset. But this does not mean that the invoice is incorrect. So let's validate it. I'll fix the description first, and then after verifying the data, I can simply confirm the line item by clicking the Is Valid checkbox. There are no more errors in this invoice, and we can continue verifying by validating the last document in the task. There are several errors in this document. The first one says that something is calculated incorrectly. Net total must be a product of quantity and unit price minus discount. And if we pay attention on this invoice, total brutto is used, but not total netto. But FlexiCapture detects the data as netto, and this is why, arithmetically, there's an error. So to begin with, let's fix what was captured incorrectly. We will specify that this is brutto, not netto. Now we have fewer errors, and the one which remains, and I say one because this is actually the same error for each line item, says that the data is not found in the database. Again, the invoice was issued without a purchase order, and so I can go and check if the items are correct. And if they are, I can simply confirm them by checking Is Valid. Let's write down or memorize the article and check the line item in the accounting database. Here we go. The line item is here, and we can check the values, find the brutto value, and compare the data. There isn't a PO for these line items, but even if there were, the rule still wouldn't work. As I mentioned before, we do not often use total brutto in the comparison rule, and FlexiCapture wouldn't be able to verify net amount. But we can do this confirmation manually, so let's go back to the invoice and mark these line items as valid. Okay, there are no more errors in the invoice or in the task, so I'm happy to say we are ready to close this task.